I think often how we think we're perceived is different to how people perceive us. Um, Most people know that I've been on a huge spiritual journey, huge evolution of my personal development and growth. I've gone on to achieve more than I could have dreamed of. I had to suffer through sort of family court and all the trauma and tragedy that entails. 1.5 years of absolute hell and misery, just trying to seek justice in a family cult that really just favours mothers. I just, I don't want to go heavily into it, but it was injustice the whole way through, and I just couldn't even. My voice was just never getting heard. And I've documented that in my Father's Daughter series. So I've overcome my biggest tragedy, and I've overcome a lot more before that too. There's so many layers to this. So I've encountered poverty, personal trauma, so like the tragedy of that, losing loved ones, homelessness to some degree. Managed to stay with family, but it was a long period, so life's been hard and heavy. And so when we come to sort of trying to help other people through their transformations, there's a balance to be had. Is it tough love? Is it a softly approach? I think circumstances are unique to an individual, but considering my environment, and I tend to be around people who I'm familiar with, but also more than that, people who have had the same opportunities as me, or perhaps even more opportunity than me. So I have a high expectation of those around me because, I think we owe it to ourselves to have that. It's kind of like once you start going on that self-development and healing and in your personal growth, it's kind of like you start to watch those around you. Who's growing, who's stagnating, who's holding you back, so who's leeching off you, who's in self-pity mode. Because often those in a self-pity mode have had more opportunities than you, and they haven't suffered anywhere near what you've been through. So sometimes it's self-inflicted. So where do you, it's about having that level of compassion, but at the same time, I think giving them a little bit of a kick up the arse. So those around me, like I said, I have a high expectation of, and I speak about it a lot, where most of my life has just been filled with disappointments. I've been disappointed in so many people that nowadays I don't expect anything of anyone. The bar is that low in terms of like what I expect. Or not even what I expect, it's not what my expectation. My expectation is rather high, but like the level of how I'm just ready to be disappointed, should I say? So I'm hardly disappointed. My disappointment in people is so huge; they naturally disappoint me. So it's a given. But okay, you validated it. So with those around me, I do have more of a tough love approach to things, because I do think people need to kick up the arse, because there's this level of stagnation in many people's lives. And if only they found some level of fulfillment, so something that inspires and something that uplifts them, something to focus their attention on, that takes them away from the mundane. People have jobs they do, it's mind-numbing, it's demoralising. Eventually it's like move away from the jobs you hate and pursue things you love, even if it's less money, even if it's a struggle in the interim. I'm doing that myself, personal transformation. It doesn't happen overnight, and you have to sacrifice to have something better, and it's just the way it is. And there's never a guarantee it will work out, but you kind of we owe it to all of us, owe it to ourselves, to at least give ourselves a chance of happiness, So I'm a bit romantic in that way, I never give up on a dream. I always chase it, because I've refused to succumb to the mundane. So again, I see people, they're stagnating, they're depressed all the time, and I'm like, you know what, I get depressed too. I have days when it's so hard and it's hard to lift myself up, and I get really pissed off. I'm like, I've worked so hard. I've worked a lot, even on like the books I've created. So by extension, or audio books, I've done the whole process, the editing, the cover designs, the formatting, of course, the writing. Every stage is me. And I haven't really seen the success from that. And that in itself is demoralising. But then you look at your home life, like I said, I've been suffering through the situation with my daughter. It's like the little glimpses of light in my life come when we're together. So it's like the holiday periods, really. And it's like those moments for me are magic. And it's like that makes everything worth it. But of course, I owe it to myself and my daughter, of course. But I think but in the end, you have to start looking at it from almost a selfish position here. when I started my journey, especially the books, it was more the focus of I want to inspire my daughter and also make her proud of me. As I got further on my development, I realised that it was really important that I'm proud of myself. So then you start to realise, okay, a significant part or the motivation was her, but now I'm doing it for me. And that really gives you a level of fulfillment and self-worth. So you're self-empowered. It's like, now I won't accept any less in my life. I want the best. And if I have to do that alone, I will. And I have no qualms in that. But again, I then reflect on other people and someone that's stagnating, someone that's being lazy, because often it's a laziness they don't recognize, maybe they're stagnating, but they're making all the excuses up of how hard their life is. And there's no doubt their life's hard, but literally just a decision change could be the catalyst that transforms your life. So yeah, we get depressed. There's no minimizing that. Most people get depressed at some point in their life, and sometimes it can be fairly often. So sometimes someone says it and then they think no one cares. And it's like, oh, no one cares. It's like we're all suffering our own freaking nightmare. And that's the reality. It's not even like I may make things look easy. Or I don't think I make things look easy. I think it's just the way I overcome things, I make things look easy. Because I'm really strong in myself. So even if I have a low day, I'll give myself a kick up the arse and say, right, get out of this, you dipshit. We've got things to do. You ain't going to get nowhere feeling like that. But So like I'm doing it to myself. So again, if I do it to myself, I kind of feel like it's okay to do it to someone else. Because the trouble is, I think you can over coddle people. Again, I say there's a balance. It's not a case of like being overly critical of people, but you do. I try to give people a sense of perspective to their life. I spoke about it before. Some family members spend a long period on benefits. Other family members, they go in career and they focus, but they're in debt because of the expectation of their partner. And I see so much around me. And of course, I hold myself to a high standard, but I put myself in situations. But again, I'm accountable for that. I don't blame someone for my misery if I'm struggling, It's kind of like it's self-inflicted, and I get it. But other people are quick to blame others or feel like their life's harder than someone else's. And it's kind of like, well, we all have the same hours in a day, So start picking yourself up and figure things out. Sometimes what it is, people are terrified of hitting rock bottom. So they do everything to keep swimming against the tide. And it's like, mate, that's inevitable. What you've been doing hasn't been serving you. So at some point, you're going to have to sort of go, right, okay, we're going for a reset. But start to sort of like focus in on what inspires you. Maybe look at what your talents are. And until you address that, you're just going to always suffer. So, for instance, I've got a family member at the moment, they've got mental health problems, they've been lifting themselves up, but now the doctor's saying that potentially they're relapsing, but it's kind of like the doctor doesn't know, and I'm looking on thinking, you just need to get yourself a job or find some passion, something to make you wake up every day with something to do. Because even some of the jobs we don't enjoy, it can provide us a platform. So I always say outgrow it eventually, but sometimes in a period, it's good because it gives us something to wake up for. It gives us purpose to our day. We socialise, so, that's really good, human interaction. We can gain experience, we can outgrow a circumstance, so it's not a case of that, just avoid these places entirely. There's a lot of development that happens. But if you just stagnate and do absolutely nothing, it's like, what have you got to wake up for in the morning? Of course you're freaking depressed. But of course, if you're getting like money easily or it's getting handed to you, and you use that as an excuse to hide behind because someone tells you you're ill, you're going to feel ill. But again, it's not dismiss someone's issues, but you kind of have to like raise the bar a bit here and go, look, use that to help you transition. But at some point, you're going to have to sort of pick a lane and focus on it to uplift your life. Otherwise, you're just going to feel the way you feel today is going to be the rest of your life. And again, I can't do it for them. You can't. I've carried the weight of so many people on my shoulders for so much of my life, and it was never reciprocated, never appreciated, always taken for granted. So like I say, I went through my trauma and the transformation, and from that, I've just like invested that time in myself, and I'm like, God damn, I can do a lot. It's like someone might see all the things I achieve in a year, and for me, it's not that remarkable, but it's great. I'm happy, I'm proud. And then when I look back at a year, and I think, bloody hell, you did all that this year. Because I see everything in like every 3 months, so if you look at it in cycles of 3 months, but some people think, wow, you did all that. But yeah, I didn't work on it all year. It's just focus your mind when you have to, And I think there's also this having an understanding that life is like seasons anyway. And I recognise myself because I'm very self-reflective. In the winter, colder months, I sort of hibernate. So it can get depressive towards the end because you've had such a level of sort of that isolating period. Then the sun comes out in spring. Spring's my favourite period because life just comes back to normal and it's uplifting. Again, it can depend on where you live and especially around the world. But in the UK, for instance, it gets really dim in the winter and the autumn. It's demoralising. But some people love it. I like it. Obviously, prefer it when it's sunny because it uplifts your mood. But like I said, there's so many variables. You know, I mean, I have people around me who have more people around them, and yet they feel lonely. And it's like that doesn't make sense. I'm the one that's alone. I made this point to all my family members because inherently, most of them feel sorry for themselves somewhere. And I'm like, well, you've got to understand, you're expecting people to visit you, but none of us visit each other. It's like we've all got lives. Life gets in the way, you know. It's not for us to sort of having to explain ourselves for everything that gets in the way. It's just life. It's heavy. People are tired a lot. You have to make time for ourselves too, otherwise obligations get crazy. So I make the point, especially within my family, that my mum's home is the hub. This is where I will travel to. So when I travel, that's where I'm at. If anybody else is there, great. If anyone's going to visit while I'm there, great. But in all honesty, I'm not going to travel to everybody else's homes. It's like no one visits me. And again, to be honest, a lot of the time I don't really like many visitors at home. I am a homebody and I'm very independent. So I do like have my boundaries, and I would get drained if I was around people constantly. I need that time. But because I'm independent, I'm strong and resilient on my own. Sometimes it gets frustrating for me watching someone who has some sort of support system around them struggling when I'm strong on my own. You know, sometimes it just doesn't make sense. Of course, I understand people going through a tragedy and they're going through difficult periods of their life. But again, I've been through the same. I had to go through a period where an ex-partner was suffering mental health issues themselves. They were suicidal. I'm having to care for the children and not let them be aware of what's going on. So I'm taking the weight of that person's life on me while also trying to shield the children from the situation. And even at home, you know, you're trying to stop the person from doing any harm. And that's a freaking nightmare to carry. That had me drained to my core. And it really comes from that I realise how low people can get. But also, sometimes it doesn't matter how much you try, it's just to no avail. I can't be someone's hero. They have to save themselves. You know, you can give them support, but at some point you have to sort of like live your own life. So that's where it goes full circle with me. It's like I've experienced the highs and the lows. Haven't really had too many highs, but if you look at me, I'm not exactly someone that's like demoralised, you know. Even though I haven't had the high highs, I know it's possible, and I dream big. I recognise how fast life can change, and I'm all for it, you know. Like I said, I want to inspire my daughter to have that freedom in her own life, to just pursue her dreams. I don't care what society says. It's like, you just do you. Whatever you want to do in your life, I'm all for it. You know, you don't have to go college and university. You don't have to run straight into a job. I don't care what the world says. It's like, you just do you, you know, and I'm proud either way. And I think too many people put the weight of themselves on the children, and then the children grow up a complete mess because they can't live up to the expectation. The only expectation I have of my daughter is to find her and pursue her happiness. Hopefully she finds that and job done. And I think that's all we should be doing. It's like this need to, I think, live up to other people's expectations puts a huge weight on people. And it's kind of like trying to remove that from our mindsets, because once you remove that, then of course you're not really expecting everybody to come and save you. It's more a case of, now I need to look at myself. As difficult as that is, why am I unhappy? What do I want to do with my life? Like, what would I like for myself? Because most people just put things off, you know, they take things for granted. I'm finding even late in life myself is that I really like holidays. For so long I dismissed it. It was like, for me it's an expensive option. I'd rather spend the money on something material that I can actually use. It has more substance for the year, you know, purpose. But I recognise just that little bit of freedom is that time to truly relax and enjoy yourself. And I think it's something. What it gives you something to look forward to every time. So if you book it, like let's say you're booking a holiday for next year, from that moment on, you know you've got something to look forward to. So, for instance, the last 12 months of my life for me has been an absolute shit. It really has. I left a job, and it was a nightmare of a job, to be honest, but paid substantially well. So my finances have been absolutely crippling since. the holidays coming up real quick now, and really it's a struggle as hell for me. And it's like I'm not financially, I'm not excited about it. On sort of a relaxing version of it, I'm really looking forward to it. It's that break I need, because I think once I come back, I'm more fresh, and then I can be more excited about the rest of the year really, and then focus on like my projects and things. So I'm aware myself that there's negatives, but there's positives, there's hope, and there's things to be demoralised about. But there's no point staying in a level of self-pity and a state of despair, because that's not going to transform your life. I could go on holiday, for instance, and I could sit and think, God's sake, nothing's set in stone, nothing's certain, nothing's guaranteed. So there's a level of instability in my life, especially financially, but then other sides too, and it's kind of like, I could go on holiday and dwell on that, or I can just say, look, either way, you're going to go on holiday and you're going to be there, so you might as well just enjoy it and worry. No point worrying and overburdening yourself. Just literally switch off, chill out, deal with stuff when we get back, and that's how I am. But when I get back, when I say I'm dealing with something, I deal with it. I'm very, very instant. I don't mess about, because there's no point having things. The problem is, people put things off. So they come up with an excuse. They don't want to do it today. I don't want to deal with this. But the problem is, it's weighing on their mind the whole time. So the best thing you can do is address it now, and then you're clear. Your mind's clear. Again, that's really important that we have that level of consciousness where we are clear, and so we can think with clarity, really. But that's what I've done with my books. So all my books are pretty much the father's daughter is showing my overcoming my trauma and the tragedy situation with my daughter. But within that, you can see that transformation, the fact that I'm growing into it, into the sort of battle through court. But you find that resilience, that empowerment. You see how resilient I am as a human being. And then you've got my spiritual books. So that's really good for development and finding our purpose and really sort of having goals in life, So now you're like in alliance. Everything happens for a reason. You find the beauty in that. So you find the beauty in even the hardships. But the last two books, Heal Your Mind to Free Your Soul and Inspire Your Mind to Enlighten Your Soul, that's all about personal development and personal growth. And really just like figuring out that life isn't all about money. It's not all about materialism. It's not all about chasing someone else's dreams, but just literally slowing things down and start setting the boundaries, of those around you. Remove other people's expectations of yourself and say, right, this is me. I am not happy. And I'm sick and tired of living someone else's life. So then you start thinking, what is it I actually want to be happy? Regardless of what the boundaries are, whatever the limitations are, what do I want? What would make me happy? And then you start focusing and tuning in on that, And before long, you're sort of you're a better version of yourself. Like you're finding that you're starting to feel that love of yourself. You can feel that energy rising. Even if your circumstances aren't great, in the back of your mind that things are going to get better, because because literally you're gravitating towards it because you're building towards better. And effectively, what we'd start doing, we start attracting like attracts like. So as we vibrate higher, so pretty much start loving ourselves and following our passions, we start to attract and align with people that are similar to that. And the ones that are actually a nightmare start to drop off because it's no longer familiar. They're not familiar to you. You're not familiar to them. It's no longer viable, It has to sort of detach. And then we just start following our passions. And of course, once we align with like-minded people, they motivate us and inspire us to keep going higher and higher. And that's really the beauty of it all. So when I see people sort of stuck in a rut, feeling sorry for themselves, I can't help but think, look, snap out of it. No one's going to fix it for you. It's going to take some hard work and self-reflection, but you can literally change your life. Or you can stay stagnating, hoping someone comes to save you when no one's coming, because literally we owe it to ourselves. Because I say this a lot. If someone has all my time and they have their own time, that means they've got two people. They've got their own person and you. Focused solely on them. That's a lot of energy. That's a lot. And then like, wait a minute, why am I so tired? I'm not growing, I'm not evolving, I'm not achieving anything. Why am I so drained and exhausted and unmotivated to an extent? Because no one's invested in me. I'm not even invested in me. I'm so invested in this other person. Once you invest in yourself, well, baby, only ways up. And that's what I am. Some people call it selfish. It's not. I'll give people advice where I can, but everything's on my terms now when it comes to my time and energy. And that's how it has to be. Otherwise, I'm the one that has to slow down. I'm the one that has to stop when someone is more than capable of living their own life. And that's what it is.